Okay, we're going to talk about two separate ways to make a 2.5 dimension mesh out of a point cloud in CloudCompare. The first is much like we would do if we wanted to rasterize it. In fact, it's in the same area. So we would go to Tools, Projection, and Rasterize. We can set the resolution of our grid raster here. Here I've got it set to 1 meter. My cell height I actually want to be maximum, and we're going to update the grid. So at this point, if we were doing something else, we might export this as a raster, but we're going to export this as a mesh. It happens very fast, so you'll see that this will appear. I'll hit cancel here, and if I uncheck the point cloud, we can zoom in and we can sort of see the effect. The biggest effect is going to happen with some of these buildings. So if we look at the point cloud, a lot of these buildings, and it's characteristic of LiDAR data, we're missing the sides. And for very tall buildings, we've got a library tower here on campus, and here you can just see the roof of that. They really become sort of, barely versions of themselves. And so if we meshify them, we get a much cleaner representation of what these building structures look like. The downside is that to do this, we've rasterized them. So for most buildings, they look okay. They're sort of this ballooning out of the sides of a building by whatever your resolution is. That's a little bit unsightly, but mostly passable. Most of the problem actually is the trees. So the crown of a tree would come down, and then as soon as it finds something that's not connected, at least on that 1 meter level, we just go straight down. And so the trees end up looking nothing like themselves, just these kind of blobs. There's a second way to do this that mostly results in the same kind of an image, and this is under Edit, Mesh, and then we have two different Delan ways of doing this, and you're most likely going to want to do an XY plane if your data is georegistered. So we're going to go ahead and do this. One of the nice things about this is that you can set the max edge length, which means, and I'll just cancel this for a second, that for areas around the edge of your scene, you can really kind of make the mesh come in the way that you would like to. So as an example, some of these areas around here actually work fine. But if this were a complex shape, something like an island, you'd get something that wouldn't look good at all. And in fact, if you zoom in and look carefully enough at the edge of this raster, you can start to see where that happens just a little bit here. You see these long, skinny triangles. I'll try to bring it back here. You see these long, skinny triangles that happen because the whole thing has to be sort of a convex shape. And so, again, if you're dealing with something, an island structure or some more complex shape, you probably don't want to do that. So I'm going to uncheck this here, get rid of that. We don't need it anymore. We're going to go to Edit and Mesh and Delan XY plane version of this. I'm going to leave this alone, but you could set the max edge length here to something to get rid of those kinds of features. It's not an issue for me here, so I'm just going to leave it alone. This tool takes a little bit of time. I've already calculated the normals, so I'm going to leave that alone. But if you need to calculate them, it'll just sort of do that as it runs the step. This will probably take a minute or so. I'm just going to pause the video while it finishes. Okay, that took about 1 minute to finish, and if I zoom out a little bit, I'll just hit the 1-to-1 here to bring out. I get mostly the same result, so we'll zoom in a little here. You get mostly the same result. The buildings kind of come out as usual. I get a slightly finer texture because I don't have to grid everything ahead of time, which can lead to more detail. It can also lead to more artifacting. I think it's a close call as to which is better here. The artifacting on some of these trees is fairly severe and looks probably no better this way, and potentially a little bit worse. But in any case, these are two different ways to calculate a 2.5 dimensional mesh. Now, every 2.5D mesh is going to have the same problem. It's just going to bring the walls of these straight down. Trees are going to look strange. If you want to try to do something a little bit more elaborate, the tool to use is under plugins, and you would want to do something like a Poisson reconstruction. Not visible there because I have the mesh selected, but if we go to plugins here, I've got the Poisson reconstruction. It's beyond scope of this video to do that, so look for that in a future video. But if you really want to try to retain the 3D shape in a little bit more detail, which is looks a lot better, but is more complicated and can result in artifacting of its own, Poisson surface reconstruction is what you'd be looking for.